So welcome. Thanks for coming today. I hope you're having a good time at Drupal Europe. So as you may know, the talk I'm going to give today is called Drupal PKM, a personal knowledge management Drupal distro or distribution. This was actually the work for my thesis for my bachelor degree on computer science back in Bolivia, where I am from. So if you want to see the document, you can just follow that link. It's the Spanish document. Sorry for the language, but you can have a look, and it's the complete development process of the distribution. So my name is John Gustavo Choquecondori. I know it's a long name. I'm sorry for that, but you can look for me on Twitter as like YoungGT9412. I'm a Drupal 8 developer at MD Systems in a Drupal-based company in Switzerland. So I've been doing this for the last 3 years actually. So there we go. Some overview. First of all, we're gonna talk about what's currently happening. Why I decided to start with this distribution. Some knowledge to share. I mean, the theory that we need to understand to understand the whole distribution, the whole development and stuff. Not that tech, but some about personal knowledge management itself. What about the conceptual design of Drupal PKM and the modules that I've developed for creating it. And finally, a small showcase, like how the tool works and how it can evolve eventually, and we will see that. So, yeah, as I said, what is currently happening? With the digitalization of the information, all the internet access, we have this problem with an endless amount of knowledge sources. It's like trying to fill a glass of water with a truck fire hose. That's a problem, right? Because we have so many information everywhere, and we don't know how to manage it, and you just feel overwhelmed with all the access we have to everything. And there are actually like a lot of companies that are creating this knowledge, and they are using it as an asset, right? Because they either sell data or they either sell the knowledge they produce to other countries, to other companies, and that's like right now we are living in this society based on knowledge as part of the economy. Then there are actually like two different approaches for this. There's this top-down or bottom-up. The difference between these two is like top-down, like having a knowledge management in general top-down with a top-down approach means that the companies will tell you which tool to use to manage your knowledge. So let's say tomorrow they're gonna give you access to Evernote, and everyone will use it because that's the standard tool for us. And you have to get used to the workflow, get used to the interface, and you have to control it. The other approach is bottom-up. It's like you decide how you structure your knowledge, your information, or whatever you create, and it's all in your control. So these are two different approaches, and there's actually a lot of discussion about it because there are some people who are not up to top-down. They don't like top-down because it's really hard. There are some tools that are really complicated. Personally, I find some tools amazingly complicated to use, and that's not how I want to know what I know. Like the knowledge that I get is just too different structure to how it is, so it's a problem. So as many of us I think many of us are knowledge workers. These people are the ones that work with knowledge. It's like it's our principal weapon. It's our principal thing that we export, that import, or whatever. And it's like this tool and everything is made for knowledge workers. So I was saying this, like the people who do like manage knowledge and work in companies that are based on knowledge and asset are knowledge workers. Like any type of engineer, architecture, students, business administration and stuff. So the good thing about this is that if we can keep a competitive advantage if we know what we know. Because there is a difference, because we all know that there is a lot of artificial intelligence development right now in the society, like that are taking some jobs of people. But the difference is, if you really know, like you have a blend of a lot of knowledge from different areas, let's say you are good with psychology, but you are also an IT person, then that cannot compete. Like an AI system cannot compete with you because you have that plan and you know how to structure, you know how to use that knowledge in different areas. So if we can manage our knowledge and we know what we do, we have still that competitive advantage over any artificial intelligence system. So that was the introduction. There's some theory we need to understand. I'm sorry for the long texts, but it's really important to know about it. So I based Drupal PKM on the Semantic web. That's actually an extension of the current web, in which the information is given in a defined meaning, facilitating the cooperative work of computers and people. Let's say like semantics in general means the meaning. It's the study of the meaning of the things. But like creating a semantic web is the creation of knowledge or information that can be understood by computers and by people and can be shared. I mean, we don't need to like not literally, but translate it to 1, 0, true or false, ifs, else, force. I mean, the computer need to understand it, the information at the same way that people can understand it. So like the semantic links that maybe you should know, like shop, cards, like something that we can understand and also the computer will understand. So ontologies, this is even more theory. These are metadata schemes that provide a controlled vocabulary of concepts, each with an explicit defining and matching processable semantics. With the definition of common and shared domain theories, ontologies help both people and machines to communicate concisely, supporting the exchange of semantics and not just syntax, which in short words means that ontologies are the representation of knowledge in a really easy way. Okay, I don't know why I put these fancy concepts, but you know the idea, so you get the idea. That's the point. So there is actually, there are like these faceted lightweight ontologies that are basically the same ontologies, and I didn't want to put more context about it, are the ones that I use in Drupal PKM. And the difference between those is that if you know RDF, how many of you know RDF? Okay, yeah, it's like it has a really their own syntax, right? It's a bit complicated to manage. Like faceted lightweight ontologies are just like trying to wrap any kind of knowledge from something really general to something really specific. So it's like way easier. We will see a bit more later on, but that's basically it. So Neo4j, more. Just forget the text. Neo4j is a graph database that it's a no SQL. So basically, any node that is inserted into the database does not need to have the same structure as other nodes. So it's really it can change the structure, the schema, and that doesn't really matter, and the performance is the same. That's a good thing about it, and that's we'll see also how it looks. So another thing, let's. I mean, how many of you know what knowledge is, or have a clear understanding of what knowledge is? Okay, that's actually a philosophical discussion all around the world, so that's not there's no clear answer. But there's one classification for this that's from Akov in 1890s, 90s more or less, or 80s. And the thing about it is, like, there is 4 different levels for this. First one is data. Let's say we have a dog and we have a street wherever you want in the world. It's in Spanish, so ignore that. And the dog, it's just a dog. We have dog and street. That's the only thing we know as data. Okay. Let's say we have a long dog. Okay. It's still the same thing, but you know the idea. So let's say when we change this to information, it's a bit different because it's data that has a meaning. We can think that a dog is crossing a street. So that's information. It has a bit more context. It can be understood, but it does not provide value to us. When it comes to knowledge, we can have a context. Let's say I'm driving a car that's going in the direction of a dog that is crossing the street. Okay, it has something that I have a point of view to it, and it's what we can manage. It's something that we produce in our minds because we are inserted into that context. At least it's one understanding. Something more like a bit beyond is the wisdom, is to define if it's good or bad. I mean, we should stop for the dog, right? I mean, we should. I would. I hope you too. So, Yeah, knowledge management. What it is? Knowledge management is like, also forget the text. It's about how organizations manage the knowledge. Like the same thing as I told you at top it down, like they give you a tool, you use it, you have to get used to it, and then you manage it. Like then people, it's like a pool where people add their knowledge and everyone, like a wiki in other words, but something more about knowledge, because wiki is just information. So personal knowledge management is, there's actually this model called the Falcon model that's a thesis in the 2015 that created this structure for using the personal knowledge. First of all, you create the knowledge as a user, like it's in your mind, it's a process, it's completely in your mind. You codify that knowledge. That's something like you can place it on nodes, place it in a computer, place it in a system, and then inside that system, that whatever you want, physical or digital, you have a model of that knowledge where you augment, like you increase the content, you create more structure, and you also have more formality, like you create a tag system or something like that. After you get, after you like create that knowledge model, you extend that knowledge model, you retrieve it, and then you use it. I mean, before you use it, of course, you will reflect, like, yeah, if is this good or bad, but that's more about wisdom, and we don't think much about wisdom. I mean, computers don't know what's good or bad yet, right? So the thing is that when creating Drupal PKM, I tried to follow this thesis, and I implemented the Falcon model in a Drupal system. It's like weird. I was trying to use, because we can manage the knowledge, like we can manage the knowledge as content within a Drupal distribution, and we can, depending on how we use it, we can follow this process of personal knowledge management. So what I did is, like, for the knowledge codification, we are creating knowledge queues. That's the basic form for the Falcon model, and it has a nodes admin page. That's any node that we create in Drupal. Then we extend the content with textual structure. I don't know what happened there, but we have revision management. I don't know how many of you have used the module diff. It was in core, but yeah. I've been developing that actually for the last year with MD Systems, so that's also why I tried to include it, and it was really helpful. Then the structure, we create more relations and knowledge queues. Every node we create in our system in Drupal, we create these relations between them. There's a module called relation that was also like related to this. I just use it. And formality, metadata, like tags. We have, of course, taxonomies in Drupal, so I just use that. But the way how it's structured is also a bit different, so we're going to look at that a bit. But that's basically the idea. Then we retrieve the knowledge, and we create queries that are a bit more semantic than usual queries. And everything is implemented into a Drupal distribution. Yeah, sorry for the Spanish. I arrived yesterday to Drupal Europe, so I didn't have enough time. I almost missed my flight. But the idea is that we have open calais. I don't know if you know about that. It's a web service. Any of you know? Okay, this is a web service to analyze any content, any text, in a semantic way, so you can, it will give you back in a JSON format the tags that are related to that. It's already really standardized, so you just get it, and you create the taxonomies based on that. Then, I also used Neo4j. By the way, this is the semantic stack of the semantic wave, and I tried to replicate the semantic stack into a Drupal distribution. So this is the structure of my Drupal distribution, or like their Drupal distribution, because it's ours, it's not mine. And Neo4j is the graph database that I was talking about, where I created like the tags that were retrieved by open calais are inside Neo4j. The nodes that are created in Drupal are also into Neo4j. Inside, we are creating the structure of lightweight ontologies, and Cypher is the language for creating the queries for retrieving the knowledge. Then we have this unifying logic that's similar, where it's basically all the Drupal modules that are over Neo4j, so people can manage it better. We have some testing, we have some trust. That trust is also based on open calais because it has some trust system when it's retrieved. And over that we have the Drupal interface, Drupal UI. So Once I built this, I didn't really know what I was doing. But for creating a semantic search method, that's something that it's not implemented in a content management system as Drupal is. I tried to follow something called query gen. That's basically, first, we define the meaning of any keyword that we introduce into the system. We generate the semantic queries that we might do. And then we access to the information repositories. So this is basically querying over all our nodes and tags that we create inside Drupal. The semantic queries are something that, based on the keywords, something that the person adds into a search field will be created, and then it's basically that. We will see how it works later. Oh, actually, no. So let's imagine we have this node, right? It's full of information. I mean, I know a lot. That's why it's so big. Okay, this should be like millions and millions of nodes, but I just got this. So let's say we have an element. So we basically have an initial node that should be the orange one. It will take a dip of 2 nodes, because that's the least relation we can get. And it will try to get a node, a Drupal node, because this is stored into a Neo4j, the Neo4j database as a node. And once we get this facet, that it's the whole line from the initial node to a base node, we will get the name of the facet, that this is going to have a name, and then we're going to check that if this initial node contains the text that we are looking for. That's like the basic first, the 3 nodes that we're going to retrieve first with that syntax in Cypher. Then we are also getting all the nodes that contain the same text that we are looking for, like this blue one, because they are not always connected, right? So we also need to look for the isolated nodes, and then we look for all the tags, the taxonomy terms that were created that are that are linked to our nodes. We also do that into our facets, like any node that is into our facet, and then we are retrieving more knowledge, more information that we should do just with keywords. So the semantic queries structure is this one. I mean, I'm creating this into inside a Drupal distribution. The people just write the keywords that they are looking for, and then it will create, it can be really long. So it might take some time to retrieve all of them, but it's actually really meaningful for the user. So the modules. Who here is a Drupal developer? Okay, every one of us. Almost everyone. So there is, that creating modules is something that we normally do, but there's actually this OpenClays UI. That's something I created, and this it's basically the UI is simple as that. It will just give you all the tags that are retrieved from the OpenClays web service, and it can analyze text in English, German, and French, if I remember correctly. So this will, any text, any node that you have in Drupal will be analyzed by this, and it's also opt-in for the user. Now, there were really big problems for this, because I think many of us have experienced the problem of having a Drupal 6 or Drupal 7 version of a great module, but it's not yet in Drupal 8. I got that problem. And that was actually with OpenClays API, because API first in Drupal 7 was a good thing, a great thing back then, maybe. And I had to port it. The problem is that when I first developed this patch, no one really replied. And even now, it has been 1 year ago, and still no one replied. And I mean, because of that, I created my own module, OpenClays UI, and it's basically a fork, or just based on the original API. The problem also was that this was an outdated API. It was using things that many of them no longer exist, that maybe happen to us sometimes. And I had to update it. I had to change from using RDF in Drupal to use JSON format to get all the tags. And it was also a lot of work that I didn't count the hours. I should have done, right? Too late. So I also get got a lot of widescreen of deaths. I don't know if you have experienced that. How many? Like, it happens, right? So it was also a big problem, and I had no idea what I was doing back then. So it's the first thing. That was the first module that I published in Drupal org, and it's part of the distribution. You can also download it. That's the link there. It's pretty structured, so you can use it for any distribution or any program system you want. The second module that I created for this was selection node. Like, as I was telling you, we need to create a structure, and it should not be based only on the taxonomy terms that we create. It should also be allowed to have these relations between nodes. So you basically like select any text inside a Drupal node, and then you can add a node, and that will create a relation between those. So I also got a lot of problems with this. There were no similar concept of like creating, like selecting some text and then just creating a relation from that. So it was like something I had to look for a lot and with no success at all. Then the relation module, as I was talking with you, had some problems with the integration with Search API. Like the indexation, I don't know if you have fought sometime with the Search API integration. Like the relation module uses the field dynamic entity reference, so it's like a field that you can have any kind of entity references in the same field, and it will automatically identify it. But that's actually a problem because back then, Search API had no way to integrate that. So what I did, I just used entity reference revisions. That's the module that Paragraph is based on, to do something similar to that, and we are still waiting for a fix for that. If you know about Search API, please help us. Then more widescreen of deaths because it was never saved, it was never indexed, and it was not creating any relation. So I had also to create workarounds for that. And still, I had no idea what I was doing when I created Drupal PKM. Then, as I was telling you, we need to create nodes because those are ontologies. These are the representation of the ontology. It's something that we are learning. So I created the module Neo4j Visualizer. That's like a way for looking at all the nodes you have inside your Drupal. And it also helped a lot, but it had a lot of problems too. There were also no similar concept. There were a lot of outdated libraries because Neo4j is kind of new with the latest version. And the site, I'm using Sigma, the Sigma library. I don't know if you know about it. Okay, it's a really cool one. Check it out. But it's really heavy. When it loads like 1,000 nodes, it's just dead. So that was also a problem. I had to look for alternative. That's a fork, but it's like done for Neo4j. Performance issues that sometimes happens, and no clear documentation. Until today, there is actually a lot of problems with that. I don't know how to do a lot of things, but somehow if you fork stuff and you play with that, it just works, right? Without testing. No. We have to test. So Drupal PKM, that's the last part. It will be released soon. It actually, there are also some problems. I'm the only maintainer for now. It's still not published. I'm going to do it probably in 2 months, more or less, maybe less if we have some help. And like the Drupal 7 modules that are never ported. And theming. Because like when you create themes, when you create custom code or custom implementation, it can always be themed, and it also takes time when you want to create a tool that people need to use and might use in production. So yeah, things that we need to think about. I mean, if we are maintainers of modules, think about having a co-maintainer because when someone is gone, we need to get more people on track. And port all your modules because it's really important. It really broke my heart when I didn't have those. And yes, so let's get a small showcase. Let me just see where it is. Okay, so this is the implementation. We have like a search wave. We can look for graphs. We can look for nodes. Also, we can create a knowledge tag and relations because that's something that people should be able to manage. We have the same here, and we have the credentials for Neo4j and OpenClays. Neo4j is actually like, as I was telling you, this database that it's running. It has its own storage inside the computer, and it's Like we have the notes here that I created. We have like the open calais is something you can sign up for, and it has a free key. So you just look for it, and they will send to you the key into your mail. And the Neo4j is the same thing. Like you have a server, like a MySQL connection. So as you can see here, this is the database. We have an iPhone, an Apple, and Steve Jobs notes that are the same ones that are inside Knowledge. We have iPhone, Steve Jobs, and Apple. So this is still using MySQL for storing the notes, but it's also synchronizing all the content we create in Drupal into Neo4j. So for looking for this, it might not get it. First, let's say that we we have the knowledge, and we want to we first any node we have, we can get like Apple, and we can, like I was talking about, extending the content or changing the content of your nodes, because your knowledge always evolves and can change. So you can like analyze your revisions, all the things you have done lastly, and then like, I mean, this is the newest way of checking the context. So I just removed this, right? So you have control over your revisions. It's really easy. I mean, for us that we have been working with Drupal more than 1 year at least, or for some time, or we are here, we are Drupal developers anyway. It's really easy to understand, but something I need to work, because people that have been using this kind of modules, like having these two checkboxes here, are like, it's really hard to understand for them. So it's something also that needs work. But first, we are managing the revisions. We have the content. And if we go to open calais tags, sorry for the bad user experience, we will work on that eventually. We can, like as I was telling you, we can use English to analyze the content that we have about Apple. This is copied from Wikipedia, so that's my knowledge, you know. So we have a list of all the tags that are related with the content. And we have like consumer electronics, because that's actually really related with Apple, with some portable media players, some software titles, iTunes media player, technology, computer software, I mean, everything. Steve Jobs is actually on 80% related with Apple, at least in the context of open calais. So we can like select Steve Jobs, we can select Apple.inc, we can select iPad, and like there are a lot, but let's just create those ones. So these are tags that are already created here. But if we look into this and we extend Apple, the tags are already, there should be more, but, oh, okay. The indexation is broken again. But yeah, we have like this taxonomy term that is related to Apple, and also Apple Inc. and iPhone. Oh yeah, because they have the same label. So if we look for the graph here, we also have this. I know what happened here. But Apple, it's also related with Apple.inc, with iPad and iPhone. That's something we just selected. So, I mean, this should be thousands and thousands of nodes, but for now at least, it's not, it has some limitations. But if you double click to any, it will give you back the node that you are looking for. Now, the good thing about this is that if we, for example, have this is the query that is created with no words at all. But if we look for Apple, the query will be automatically updated, and we have somewhere here we are comparing the content of the Apple of the Apple itself, the knowledge Apple, you know what I mean, into this query. Now we have a limit of 150 nodes, at least for not breaking the Drupal implementation, but we can also include the description of the node. So like if we have thousands of nodes, it can have a lot of some performance, like it can reduce the performance a bit if we look for descriptions, because it can be a really long description, but it still works. I mean, if we just look for this, we'll also retrieve the same, maybe some others, because it has Apple, should be somewhere else. But iPhone, the thing is that we get to have a really big knowledge base, that it's personal, that's something we can manage, and it will grow, and it's based on Drupal. So it will be open, and those Drupal modules are anyway for the community. And we want the people to know what they know. So, to go back to the presentation, what's next about the future of Drupal PKM? We want more suggestions for people, like what they might need, they might want in the tool. We will release it. We will keep evolving the tools based on the users' feedback, and we might eventually release it as a software as a service. Also, we want to extend this to creating knowledge, because right now it's just managing knowledge. That's what you get, what you manage, what you retrieve, and that's it. But there, like with some AI implementation, it can also tell you what to know. I mean, it can teach you, and that can also be part of your knowledge. We can change maybe the ontologies to be a bit more complex, because right now it's just based on the user, how the user structure. And we can maybe use some natural language for searching. I mean, there are APIs, but because it was my thesis project, I didn't implement it yet. I mean, they didn't ask anyway stuff, so more complicated is not that good, but with a Drupal experience, people, it's always good to talk about it. So yeah, they told me to promote this, become a Drupal contributor for Friday, and thank you. That's it. So you have, like, someone has any question, something you want to know? Yeah, sure.
Who do you see using this kind of systems? Which kind of users do you envision?
Mm-hmm. Okay, this is actually for any knowledge worker, because we are like developers, right? So we have to show somehow what we know, and if this is a system that we can prove, like put a proof to say this is all the things, all the programming languages I know, then it's something like that. I mean, it cannot work for people who are studying history, because that follows a different approach of learning. It's about like repetition after some time, and we don't really need that. It's more about practice. So in that case, it wouldn't be that useful. But there are also some other personal knowledge management work made in Drupal there. So it's a different approach, but maybe for knowledge workers. Anyone else? Whatever you want. Okay.
Just wait a second, sorry.
Yeah.
It's for the recording, sorry.
Can you show again a link to a project site where we can find more information about it?
Oh,
so I can
sure.
refer my developers to it.
Yeah, I mean, right now we don't. It's not published yet. I can show you first the links of the modules that are implemented, because still a work in progress. But this is first OpenClays UI. It's a selection node and Neo4j visualizer. But if you want to look the document, that's the first thing. It's down there. It's on my personal page. But it's the whole documentation in Spanish, how it was created, and it's basically everything. So that's okay. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Mm. Yeah, sure.
Is the selection node, is that in your demo? Is it visible?
Oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah, sure. I can just show you here. For example, if we have this knowledge, let me just. We select any context, and we can just add a node, and we show you in a pop-up. So let's say test. Whatever. Oh, that's the theming problem, you know. But still, we save it, and it should basically be created somewhere here. Let me just. Yeah, somehow it's a bit broken right now, but yeah, it's that's the thing. If we manage the relations, it's here, Steve Jobs and test, so we can edit it and implement more.
What did it create in Drupal? Is it a term?
Oh
Or
no,
an
it created a node, another node that is related to the original node. So this this reference field that's looking reference.
Oh yeah, okay, that's a node. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Different content type?
No, it's the same content type.
Okay.
All of them are nodes, like nodes, not nodes.
Okay, everything's a node.
Yeah.
The T. Okay.
Yeah, and like the tags are actually like based on OpenClays, so that's a different content type. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay then. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming, and have an amazing time on Drupal Europe. Thank you.